Don't blink. It's your boy Ink. Welcome to the show. I think welcome to having a wonderful day. Um, on this 13th June 2025. Today we're answering a simple question. It is such a good content. Um, I had somebody in the DM told me today. A lot of people called you weird. Don't doesn't it bother you? Now, um, I feel like this is a it's a good question, but it's such a weirdly put question, right? Um, but there is a principle behind it, and there's a reason why it doesn't bother me. So today we'll talk about the reason why it doesn't bother you. So if you're weird, just like me, this will serve as a sort of a guiding, sort of a role model, but most of all, sort of like, hey, you're kind of cool. So a lot of people call me weird, which is true. I am a weird guy, by the way. So it's not like, oh, just they're just making fun of you. No, it's true. How do I deal with it? Well, when I was younger, right? When I was younger, and it's kind of crazy because we did a video about it with the medication this morning, ADHD. When I was a kid, I was called crazy, crazy a lot. I often got called crazy because I was so weird. I was so weird because some days I was zombie and some other days I was normal, you know? So it was, you never knew what to expect with. And also I had these ideas that nobody had because with not speaking about it, you're like, for example, right? Somebody you work with somebody and they don't talk, right? And then they finally talk, and the first thing they say is, "I believe in Martian," and I believe in Martian. You'll be like, "Okay, well, that's a bit sudden, right? Are you good?" So a lot of time in my life, I've been called crazy. There's time where I literally went crazy though. So this is kind of factual versus just an insult. It's always also about the perception you have. If you're bothered by being called weird, and people call you weird, and they're your friends, they're not real friends. But at the same time, it's not necessarily an insult, right? So for example, if somebody called you stupid, that's an insult. If somebody called you fat, that's an insult. Weird, in my opinion, is not an insult. It's just we having a different point of view. You have to accept that. You have to understand that being weird is not a simple thing. I think being called a name. So we're gonna go racial a little bit. Um, if you take the N word, right, and this is gonna be super offensive. Maybe I'm gonna get canceled, but who gives a shit? If you take the N word in itself, right, and you're like, oh Lee, you just said N word, right? However, some people will call N word, and there is large aurora storm. Watch, oh that's nice. Um, See, with the N word, some people say that in a positive fashion, right? It's like my boy or my homie, and they took the word and they put it positively. For weird is the same thing. It's how you perceive it. If you perceive it as an insult, then also coming from the person, the intonation, coming from the person, you're like, okay, well, this is bad. Am I saying that it's cool to be weird? No. Am I saying that you should be weird otherwise you're fucked? No. I'm just saying that being weird isn't a bad thing. Because you're different than other people, that's a good thing. For example, you see this person that's an asshole and say, oh, you're weird. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not like you, so I'm not an asshole. That's good. Or there's people that are following a footstep, and you see that those footsteps, and you see everybody following A, B, C, and D, and G, and E, and you're like, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. And because you walk a different line, you're called crazy. So the concept of, or the context, sorry, of the name calling is also important. But then, even then, it was such a pleasure because I went from being called crazy to being called weird. So already this is more positive, first of all. See, whatever you say, I don't think there's a lot of occasion where being called crazy is a positive. However, I can tell you a lot of positive thing about being called weird, right? It's how you perceive it. It's really important. It's really important the way you perceive things. If you perceive it as a positive thing, you have to take ownership of the word. You have to take ownership of every single word. Take ownership of your own life. It, you know, you know, you gotta ask yourself all the question: am I okay with being called weird, or am I okay with the way I live? And if I'm okay with the way I live, should I care about people saying, "Hey, you should change your way of life"? No, I'm happy. You know. It's all a question of perception. I was talking to this girl, and it was sexual a little bit, and she said, "Oh, I'm a weird person. I'm a freak," and I say, "A little bit of weird is nice. A little bit of freak is nice." Like she was like, "It's the first person that says that." You know, back in the days, being a nerd was weird. Now it's popular, right? It's about ownership. It's about perception. Some person that was watching, for example, anime, like, oh, you're so weird, you're watching anime. And then the cool kid on the block were like, hey, I'm gonna watch anime just to make fun of them. Like, no, it's actually funny, fucking funny. He saw Jiraiya died, and it's like, oh my god, they killed Jiraiya, and he's crying, you know. So it's all about ownership of the word. It's all about ownership of your emotion. And finally, it's all about how you perceive yourself. Do I care what people think? Is my own happiness, is my own well-being trump other people's perception? If yes, you're good. If not, then okay, let's put it like that, right? If my own happiness doesn't trump what people think about me, then I'm weird, and my own opinion of the word weird of myself is negative. They didn't force me to see myself in this negative fashion. I saw myself in this negative fashion, you know. Like, for example, an hour ago, she's drunk. So she told me, shut the fuck up. Right? Now, I was working, and I was having a really good life. I was talking to Anna, I was talking to Andrew and Michael. And I had two choices. I had a choice of being like, oh, she's right, I should shut up. Or like, hey, I'm having a good time, who gives a fuck? Right? And because I said, who gives a fuck, then I allowed myself to be happy. I allowed myself to be in a place where this didn't matter. It didn't matter, you know? Anyway, I love you guys. Sorry for the noise, this is the tower. Take it easy. Peace.